The market is going to collapse within 60 days. Guys, that's what the expert in Fox Business is explaining to us. But before I go on into this, let's check the news from around the world. This is something that you probably should want to start doing. In other countries, you usually have, just check the little flag there. You usually have English versions of whatever other country you want to look into. But here you get an idea of how things are going. I usually check news from back in Argentina. The Argentine bonds in Wall Street are falling apart because of the crisis. Biden, after the collapse of SVB, this is CNN in Spanish. The banking system is secure. Yeah, right, nice. Biden pledges whatever needed for U.S. system as banks hit by SVB fallout. Go on. U.S. waits new fund to backstop deposits if more banks fail, Bloomberg News says. It goes on. Global markets sink after sharp sell-off in U.S. bank stocks. Yes, I can actually see that in different countries. They're talking about the same thing. Stocks going down all across. Yelling, our friend there, says rules out bailout for Silicon Valley Bank. We're not going to do that again, she says. And right after that, Biden says, yes, we will. Biden says saving Silicon Valley Bank helps economy breathe easier. But not all experts agree. No, of course we don't. They always do the same thing. We have Yellen there saying, we're not doing that again. Yes, you are. You always do it. You call it whatever it is. But the same goes on and on. But let's see what this expert here has to say.
And New York Times bestselling author Larry McDonald. Larry, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I want to get your take on Jay Powell yesterday. What did you make of the speech?
Well, it's kind of like he's overcooking the goose. They're playing catch up, and while they were doing quantitative easing in 2021, right, inflation started to rage, and now they're trying to catch up. Our 21 Lehman systemic risk indicators that look at equity and credit point to one of the highest probabilities of a crash in the stock market looking out 60 days.
Wow, 60 days? You're saying you're going to...
60 days. You usually hear people, guys, next year, 6 months from now, within the next couple of years, 60 days. That is one of the most bold statements by a guy that actually does make a whole lot of sense, and he's actually a good analyst. Unlike many clowns out there talking out of their ass, this guy has a solid reputation. Everyone is wrong every once in a while, but 60 days.
We're going to see a crash in the stock market within 60 days?
Yes, because the withdrawal of capital from the middle-class families is so spectacular. For every 1% increase. Now, a lot of these economists and Wall Street people, they throw around, the Fed's hiking basis, 100 basis points, 50 basis points. The bottom line is for every 1% increase in rates, and we've done almost 5% now, every 1% takes $50 billion out of the pockets of middle-class families.
And there you go. There you go. That's why they do it. And keep in mind, when you see everyone talking about the economy is doing great, and there's a guy here, one of these, a little bit of a shill, these guys, the economy is doing better than ever. No one has been richer than right this moment in history. The economy is booming. What are you even talking about? You have to analyze piece by piece. Not everyone is booming. Just because billionaires are making even more billions, it doesn't mean that the economy, and what really matters, the people that bust their asses and allow those super wealthy to become even wealthier through a mechanism that, in many aspects, which is inflationary, which is just taking away money from the people that work hard, that actually do the work into these mechanisms of financing themselves and making themselves richer at the expense of you and me.
Loans right now are approaching 14%, almost 20% of auto loans are $1,000 a month. And so the middle-class families are getting hammered here. And so the consumer pressure is, violent. But on the high end, the wealthy are doing well with excess savings and higher interest rates.
Yeah. Well,
of course, as always.
Well, look, I'm glad you brought up rates because we're talking about the 2-year above 5.
Sort of pending crash coming up in 60 days. That's a pretty bold statement.
That's what he's getting from his Lehman indicators. He talks to so many institutions every day. Go ahead.
But I mean, 60 days, Larry. I mean, do you really believe that your indicators are right, and that there's some sort of crash when you have the most amount of people ever making the most amount of money ever, spending the most amount of money ever, and it's
No, it's not the most amount of people. They talk out of their ass. It's not the most amount of people ever. You're looking at an entire generation that are going to be poorer than their parents. That's not an entire generation that's richer than ever before. That's not true. It's not true anymore. It hasn't been true for a long time. You're seeing an entire generation of people that are dropping in that scale. But he actually explains it here. I like what he says about there.
Basis points inverted. So that means the 2-year Treasury is 100 basis points more than 10. That's threatening. But then on top of that, you look at the underperformance of the regional banks. So your regional banks are your classic canary in the coal mine. They're underperforming the S&P by like 6, 7, 8% over the last 6, 9 months, a year. So the regional banks are telling you something really bad is happening under the surface in commercial real estate, auto loans, residential. There's really massive cracks under the surface. And that's why the market probably goes down 10, 20%, maybe 30% the next 60 days.
10, 20, 30.
There you go. And he's absolutely right. I completely agree with his assessment. These guys that focus on, multi-billionaires are richer than ever. Sure, they always are. And especially now that they've used these mechanisms so as to, transfer wealth from the entire planet to a handful of elites. Yeah, the economy is doing great for them, but not for the ordinary people that this guy is referencing to when he talks about the small local banks, the guy that is busting his ass and just not making it because of inflation, the middle class. All of that is what really sustains the economy at the end of the day, not these guys that are making billions out of thin air in things that only themselves can justify to themselves because there's no one controlling what they're doing. Folks, guys, as always, prepare while you still can, especially for this kind of stuff, surviving the economic collapse. And for the reality that comes right after this, you want to get street survival skills because it does get very, very complicated. See you on the next video. Take care.